Welcome to Green TV, the show dedicated to positive Green New Deal solutions and the independent Green Party, and independent candidates that advocate for them. I am Gail Bakker, your host for today. Green TV is about Green New Deal, eco-jobs for the economy, positive solutions, eco-capitalism. Prices must tell the environmental truth. It's about the green industrial revolution with solar jobs, wind jobs, geothermal jobs, rail jobs, weatherization jobs, conservation jobs, efficiency jobs, lots of jobs. It's about building green neighborhoods, walkable, bikeable, pedestrian and rail-friendly communities. It's about cutting taxpayer subsidies to zero for fossil fuel, big oil, big auto. Rail built anywhere in America benefits all of America. And today we're fortunate to have in the studio Bill Redpath and Andy Bakker with the Libertarian Party. So, Bill, you're on the National Committee for the Libertarian Party, is that correct?
That's right.
And you're an attorney as well?
No, I'm not.
Oh, you're not?
No. Watch your mouth, Gail.
Oh.
Just kidding. I know there are a lot of attorneys out there. No, a lot of people think that. I work with attorneys in my work as a financial analyst and a business appraiser, but my brilliant legal career ended with my taking of the LSAT. What can I say?
I see. Okay, well, good. Thanks for correcting me on that.
Okay, sure.
And Andy, you're the vice chair of the Virginia Libertarian Party.
That's right.
Okay. And you're a student, a law student.
Yes, I'm also not an attorney, but I am a law student
I see.
George Mason, the recently renamed Antonin Scalia School of Law.
I see. Well, wonderful. Thank you both very much for being here with us today. A couple of weeks ago, I had the Lieutenant Governor candidate from the Constitution Party on the show, and so we're expanding our horizons this year with a few more candidates. So tell us about the Libertarian Party. What are their goals, and what are your roles in the Libertarian Party? And tell us a little bit about what would you like.
Well, the Libertarian Party is the third largest political party in the United States on a number of measures, but I would say this, that it is a combination essentially of conservative positions on economic issues and liberal positions on social issues. But there is a core theme, and that is we want to reduce the use of government coercion in society. Consequently, we want to reduce government spending, we want to reduce taxes, and have real respect for civil liberties. And big picture, that's what we stand for.
I see. Okay. And your role, Andy, how long have you been in the Libertarian Party? And
Sure. So I came into the Libertarian Party in 2013. That was the year that Robert Sarvis was running here in Virginia. After that, I managed a congressional campaign, Jeffrey Carson, in the 8th District in 2014. I ran for office myself in 2015 for the House of Delegates. This past year, I took the step up to where I currently sit as the vice chair of the Libertarian Party of Virginia. And at the state level, we do a lot of work in candidate support and candidate recruiting and vetting and things like that, but also in ballot access.
I see. How this is your opportunity to, do you all have anything that you would like to say to the viewers and would like the viewers to know about the Libertarian Party?
Well, it's always, we're blessed in Virginia, so to speak. It's always an election year in Virginia. So I don't know, we may have a candidate for governor this year. That's uncertain at this point, or other statewide offices that may occur. But we will certainly have candidates for the Virginia House of Delegates in a number of races around the state this year. And then, of course, 2018 will be the midterm elections and a U.S. Senate election in Virginia coming up in 2018. So the LP, I will say this much, 2016, although there were some things in 2016 in the election results that I didn't much care for, it was a good year for the Libertarian Party because we now have ballot access in 37 states. I believe that is 37 or 38. I should know, but it's 37 or 38,
wow,
which is the best we've ever had coming out of any election cycle. And we're working on states. We're just starting a petition drive in Ohio. We'll be starting one in Arkansas next month. We'll be petitioning in Virginia. our candidates have to petition, unfortunately, to get on the ballot in Virginia. So we have the best ballot access coming out of any election in the history of the LP.
That's wonderful. Yeah, the Green Party also had a measure of success too in getting on the ballot in more states than they had before, than even when Ralph Nader was running for the Green Party candidate. So what do you see happening as far as the public is concerned? Are you getting more members in the Libertarian Party? Are more people interested in joining?
Yes, the membership numbers went up substantially in 2016. Now the key will be to hang on to them, and we expect there will be some attrition in 2017, because the reason that propelled so many people to join the Libertarian Party was, well, Gary Johnson as a candidate for president, but also, frankly, the unpopularity of the older party candidates for president made people look for an alternative, and a lot of people looked to the Libertarian alternative and liked what they saw and joined up. So I hope they'll stay and get involved and run for office.
Yes. And do you foresee that this year you'll have a vigorous campaign for House of Delegates? There are, what, 140
No,
seats?
100, just 100, and then 40 in the Senate, but they won't be up until 2019. And so I hope so. We're certainly working to maximize the number of candidates this year in Virginia.
I see.
We've got a chance to get up, I think, close to double digits. I mean, I think that's a reasonable goal as far as House delegates candidates are concerned. Bill mentioned we're still working on somebody to run for a statewide office for governor or lieutenant governor. That hasn't happened yet, but we certainly hope it will. And if it does, that will be a vigorous campaign. Kind of all eyes are on Virginia this year. There are only 2 governorships up, Virginia and New Jersey. Virginia is a much more competitive state, it's much larger, so we want to take advantage of that attention that'll be in the Commonwealth this year.
Good point, good point. And for people who might be viewing and are interested in running for office, how can they contact you, and who should they contact about running for office for the Libertarian Party?
They could contact Andy or me. Or the state chair. I guess it would be chair@lpva.com
Yes.
or vice chair at lpva.com.
Yeah, either of those work. We have a beautiful brand new website, lpvirginia.org. So we encourage people to go there. There is a form that you can submit and tell us where you are, what you'd like to run for. And we'd love to have anybody to come to us. It's not a promise that just because you come to us, you get to run. But we want all interested parties coming in for this year and for next year with the U.S. House and U.S. Senate next year.
I mean, what I would, just to sort of put a fine point on what Andy just said, I mean, there wouldn't be any guarantee that somebody would get the Libertarian Party nomination for that office. But so, I mean, anybody can run for House of Delegates with 125 valid signatures of registered voters in their Virginia House district. And they could do that without the blessing of the Libertarian Party of Virginia. But I would certainly like libertarian-minded people to be a part of the Libertarian Party and to be candidates for us.
And what do you look for in a candidate for the Libertarian Party? And what is your process for selecting a candidate?
Well, the process is there's a convention held for, if it's a statewide candidate, there's a statewide convention. If it's a House of Delegates candidate, it's a convention for Libertarian Party of Virginia members in that House of Delegates district. So they would have to there would be a convention, and if they get a majority of votes at the convention, then they would be the officially designated nominee. What do we look for? I would say that we would like somebody to, first of all, work on the issues, to know what they're talking about, to at least a reasonable extent, to be actual libertarians, first of all, and represent the Libertarian Party well, and And if they bring a bag of money to the table, we wouldn't turn that down. But so it's all about really being a third-party candidate for office. There are varying degrees to which people put effort and resources, and there's no absolutely right way to do it. But I would certainly like people to put more effort in than less. But at the very least, represent the Libertarian Party well. If you get invited to a forum, go. If a reporter calls, talk to the reporter. If you get questionnaires in the mail, which you will get as a candidate, I guarantee you, and some of those questions are pretty tough, but do your best to answer the questions forthrightly in the questionnaire and get it in on time. And above and beyond that, the sky's the limit. But I think those are at least the basics that we would ask someone to fulfill if they were to run for office as a Libertarian.
I see, okay. You're watching Green TV, the show dedicated to positive Green New Deal solutions and the candidates that advocate for them. In the past 10 to 12 years, we have seen strong steps forward for renewable energy and for rail mass transit. David Freeman, who is a frequent guest on Green TV, advocates for an all-electric America and says that we can be 100% renewable energy within 10 years with the right emphasis. At this time, we believe that it is prudent for average citizens in the U.S. to begin thinking defensively in terms of how the environment may affect them in terms of housing, transportation, employment, and investment. So, Bill and Andy, has the Libertarian Party developed a position on the environment and global warming and renewable energy?
We have, absolutely, and it is in the platform. The Libertarian Party really believes in all issues that the answer is shrinking government. And to address climate change, it's really the willful actions of consumers and private individuals who can bring these changes here. I know that you mentioned subsidies. The Libertarian Party would cut all subsidies to oil companies, to gas companies, to things like that. Libertarians about individuals and about individuals taking actions to bring the world they want to see through the marketplace.
I would say certainly Libertarians are concerned about the environment. There's no question about that. I do think that we think that there has to be a cost-benefit analysis involved in this. Really having, I think the most positive thing that can be done for an environment is having an affluent society. And that is the thing that most hurts the environment in third world nations, I think, is the fact that they don't have an affluent society and can't afford to do the things to protect the environment that we take for granted. So I think that I think we would like to see market processes work, and they can work for the environment. But I think that certainly there is a commons out there that has to be looked after, and sometimes there certainly is a legitimate role for government in that.
And it's worth considering that the largest polluter in the world is the United States federal government, and so one way to reduce pollution is to reduce federal government spending, specifically military spending. And that's something the Libertarian Party comes out for very strongly.
Yes, the Green Party, Independent Greens are in complete agreement with that. There is a new study out by Australian researchers that have a new model, and they are predicting now that we will see the benefits or the results of global warming much sooner than had originally been predicted. They're saying by 2020, the temperature of the Earth will warm 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2020, which will have tremendous effects on the ice in the Arctic and the melting and the rising sea levels. I'm glad to know that you all are considering the environment in your platform.
Yes. Now, I hadn't read that study. That seems pretty. 1.5 degrees Celsius within the next 3 years.
4 years, 2020, yeah.
Well, it's 3 years. Okay, that's news to me. I mean, I do think there are some. I haven't seen the study, so I really can't comment on it. There hasn't been a lot of global warming over the last 16 years or 17 years, to the best of my knowledge. We are having a warm winter right now. There are I just read where there's a cold snap. However, serious cold snap in India is what I've heard, or just saw on Wikipedia earlier today, as a matter of fact. So I don't know, but I do know there are some libertarian, I would say free market environmentalist, Pat Michaels, for instance, who's affiliated with the Cato Institute, and I haven't read the book, but their thesis is that yes, there is global warming, but the title of the book is actually called Lukewarming, is the title of their book, and their thesis is that there is some global warming going on, and it may very well be man-made. But they don't think it's a crisis, and I guess that's sort of where I am at this point. It's not an area of great expertise. There are other areas of expertise that are greater than that for me, but I do know that is the position of some fellow libertarians. There is some warming going on, but it doesn't present a crisis, and so.
I see that. Well, that one position that's taken towards global warming is to look at it and what should be done, and then the other is the negative. Well, what happens if we're wrong about it? For example, if the people who say global warming is real are right, and we take positive solutions to correct this, the situation, and have cleaner air, cleaner water, and more renewable energy and mass transit, then if they're wrong, then what's the harm? We only have renewable energy, another way of energy, and another way to get around. However, if the people who are saying that global warming does not exist are wrong, then the results could be catastrophic for the U.S. and for the entire planet. So we are a real strong advocate of taking those positive solutions of renewable energy and also rail mass transit. So have you all developed a position on mass transit for your party?
I'm not aware of a specific position on mass transit, other than libertarians would like to see it handled privately through a market process. I do know there's a man with the Cato Institute by the name of Randall O'Toole who favors bus rapid transit over rail, and one of the reasons is the cost of rail is very expensive versus bus rapid transit. Because the buses, first of all, have more flexibility as to where they can go, because of more roads versus the rail, and also again, basically the cost involved in the development of rail versus bus rapid transit is much higher. So I think libertarians certainly aren't opposed. I take Metro rail whenever I can in DC because I don't like the traffic in the area. But that said, there are significant costs, and one of the problems, frankly, that we've encountered with the metro system here is the system has not done maintenance correctly, as we see, and there's been a reticence at times, is my understanding, to raise fares to properly maintain the metro rail system. So that's one thing that you've got to do on a rail system, certainly, and we're at least in the short term paying the price in the Washington D.C. area for the lack of maintenance on the metro rail system. Yeah,
I mean, I just to kind of build on that, when it comes to the DC Metro, it's been just horrendously managed, and we've got 7 different cities with their hands in the pot. When we talk about market solutions to climate change, think about things like Uber, where all of a sudden, instead of everybody driving their own car, we're able to ride share, and to do that without government, to do that with market incentives that make sure we have the right amount of cars in the right places when we need them. So there are ways around that without necessarily going to mass transit, and I think that perhaps that's one reason why that hasn't been incorporated into the platform, because it really is market solutions that libertarians look to solve these problems.
Well, we could really have a good discussion on this, maybe somewhat a heated discussion. But one thing I'd like to point out to you is that California decided to build high-speed rail, and what they did is they looked at the population growth that they were expecting in the next 20 to 30 years. And in this area, Fairfax County is expected to grow by 20 million people in the next 20 years. So we're going to have a large population boom as well. But they looked at their population growth, and then they calculated what they would have to do to their infrastructure to be able to accommodate that many people in California. And they found that they could build high-speed rail for half the cost of increasing the road infrastructure. So I know that libertarians are very interested in being economically wise with all of our public monies, and relying more on private investment and private solutions. But that is one remarkable statistic. High-speed rail for half the cost of the normal infrastructure, and that's one of the reasons that California went with high-speed rail. And it's much cleaner for the environment. It can run on renewable energy and have cleaner air, cleaner water, and water is a big concern right now, in California especially.
But how long have they, I mean, that project hasn't come to fruition yet, though. I mean, the high-speed rail project is it's my understanding they've run into some financing problems due to the expense of it. I mean, it's not operating yet, is my understanding, and I'm not sure when it's going to operate. It's
under construction. Mm-hmm. It takes a while to build a high-speed rail system, just like it took a way to build the interstate road system. It takes a while. You build it in chunks. You don't build it all at once. But it's under construction, and it is going to happen, and they have had stumbling blocks. There are interests, big oil, big auto, big asphalt, that are opposed to high-speed rail. That's why the citizens need to be more proactive to stand up for cleaner air and cleaner water and fiscal responsibility. I can't see how anyone could argue with a long-term solution that is half the cost and would create cleaner air and cleaner water. It escapes me why anybody would be opposed to that.
I agree. I mean, it's a matter of the facts at hand, and certainly I think the private sector, if there is an economically feasible plan, the private sector would move in on it, and they haven't done so to my knowledge in California. Maybe you're right about that, but I will say this much: a bus rapid transit system would already be running. I mean, it would already be running. You wouldn't have to go through all of the major infrastructure construction, and that's the end result. The end result isn't jobs; it's creating wealth. It's creating goods and services for people that mean something to people, which is always tested in the marketplace. Is this important to people? Is it not important to people? You always find that out in the marketplace. You don't always find that out through government action.
Yeah. I think we've probably had this discussion when you and I were running for U.S. Senate as well, Bill. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to point out to you, remind you that studies have shown that when you consider the money that's put into buses mm-hmm. and as opposed to rail, it's $10 per rider for buses compared with 50 cents per rider for rail. It's much cheaper, and rail can move more people more efficiently. Hurricane Katrina proved that you can't evacuate, you can't move people with buses, mm-hmm. but in Hurricane Sandy proved to us how efficient rail is at moving people, because you can move tremendous amounts of people with rail, not so with buses. And buses burn fuel. They pollute the air. Unless they're running on renewable energy, which some buses
can.
Some
do. Right.
Some do. If it were renewable energy, I might agree with you. But otherwise, we gotta move back to renewable energies from the sun, the wind, water.
Again,
geothermal.
if that's economically feasible. I mean, the problem is it economically feasible? And there's a big question mark about that I read. And I have read studies done by Cato Institute. Again, Randall O'Toole does a great job there, in my opinion. You got to compare apples and oranges, and there is a huge upfront cost. And also, pollution is created in building the infrastructure for rail systems. I mean, maybe that is the case once you get to a certain point, but what about all that capital cost? I find it difficult to believe that it's only 50 cents, whatever you quoted, including all the capital structure that goes into creating the rail beds and the rails and everything. Maybe after that, maybe it's 50. I don't know. I'm not an expert, and I haven't read in this area for a while. But at the end of the day, I just think that the market and the private processes can judge all these factors better than government can in instituting transportation options.
And I would tend to agree with that. I think it's a little misleading maybe to focus on the cost to the government of bus rapid transit, the cost to the government of maintaining a train system, because there's another party in all of this, and that's the taxpayers. And if there are taxpayers who can build a transportation system at, say, 5 cents instead of 10 cents, then that's a net win for everyone. If Amazon comes in and they want to have drones flying people out of hurricanes, if they have that capital to do that with, all of a sudden they can. Instead of the government saying, you will build a train that drives here, let the profit system, the price system, tell us where we actually need routes. Where do people actually want to go? That's something that individuals can communicate by buying a ticket somewhere or by investing their funds or something like that.
Yes. Well, I can see that we're almost out of time. I want to thank you both for being on. It's been a very good conversation, Andy and Bill. Appreciate your being here with us today. The Libertarian Party. And
Gail, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. That's it today for Green TV. I'm Gail for Rail Parker, your host. Please join us again next time for Green TV.